this is Sarah Squires with today's edition of WYO Today Newsroom. Today on the show, senior reporter Marit Gookin takes you behind the scenes to a tribal relations committee late last month of great importance to the region. During the meeting, legislators signaled their intention to roll back a proposal that would have rejected $58 million in federal Indian Health Services dollars after protesters attended the meeting and expressed deep concerns about what that cut would have meant for health care in this part of the state and across Wyoming. Here's senior reporter Marit Gookin with the story.
Cuts to Indian health care kills!
Cuts to Indian health care kills!
Cuts to Indian health care kills!
On January 27th, protesters gathered outside the CWC Intertribal Building, where the Select Committee on Tribal Relations was meeting. They were there to protest against the Joint Appropriations Committee's decision to reject $58 million in federal funding earmarked for tribal health from the state's proposed budget. I'm Marit Gookin, and I'm here with Nicole Wagon.
How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming out today, Nicole.
Absolutely. Got to stand up and speak out.
Yeah. So for the folks who are listening to this and can't see, can you describe a little bit what's going on here today?
Well, I belong with the Action Committee. We've been going at it for over a year. A year this February with different issues. And I absolutely embrace my neighbors of the hands off, the no kings, honoring Renee Good and speaking on not having vigils, making sure that ice stays off of our land. And they know that Wind River is a sovereign nation, and they're really upset when we read about the $58 million. And so they reached on out to me and said, let's take a stand, come together and protest. And I embrace our neighbors of not right. I mean, look at their signs. They have honor our treaties, 1868 treaty. I mean, hey, to make it better and safer for overall in the state of Wyoming.
Yeah. I think an important thing with this $58 million that, we've talked about in our coverage, but I feel like I haven't seen as much in statewide conversations, is the treaty rights. That's so important.
Yeah. So the treaties were here before Wyoming was even a state. I mean, if you want to look into history and stop and think about it, you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's enough with our land. I always out here to fight for our water, grateful that I embraced our neighbors with Shoshone tribes to stop Pilot Butte. So, but what's unfortunate, a lot of people get afraid to stand up and speak out for retaliation. But when you remain silent, change will never happen. So, I know with Wind River Cares, we have over 600 plus employees. I believe with the Shoshone tribe, they have at least 250. And it all affects them. Not only that, it affects healthcare overall. So you combined, we're looking at over 10,000 Arapahoes and 2,500 Shoshones. That's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
And so to stand up and speak out for our healthcare, that's a right. And I stand up to speak out for my children, my grandchildren, and obligated to leave something behind. So
You're speaking.
yeah.
Well, I heard that Senator Case and Ivan Posey and Tim Salazar were all out here earlier.
Yes. And Tim Salazar gave us great news. He said that from the Senate side, he believes that 41.3, but we want all of it. In fact, we want more, of our healthcare is a human right. So, whatever we need to do to come together, like you see all these people with all their signs, 58 million cut, that's a crime shame. It's neat that to embrace our neighbor, right? And to make that stand and come together for that difference. It gets anybody mad. If they look at it, read on it, research it, just like you said. So what's the reason behind it? What's the actual reason behind those decisions? And if nobody likes those reasons or accept those reasons, then we got to educate our voters. Vote better. Election years coming on up. who's going to take a stand, who's going to stand up and speak on out for the people. So it's critical. But you can make the change even by that vote too. So, yeah.
The Select Committee on Tribal Relations invited the Joint Appropriations Committee to come speak to the issue. Chairman John Baer zoomed in, as did Senator Giroux, Senator Tim Salazar, who's the Vice President of the Wyoming State Senate, and a local senator here from Fremont County, is a member of both committees and also spoke to the issue. Here's what Representative Baer had to say.
So I think one of the main issues that we had for the committee was $58 million in federal funding that probably was on most of the people's minds this afternoon. Chairman, if you could kind of speak to that.
Absolutely. So this program has been fully funded since 1995, and I will start by saying that it will be fully funded into the future. It is a 100% reimbursement rate from the federal government for any activities that are taken care of on the reservation by reservation staff in the Medicaid realm. And the base budget going into this budget was $92 million. And what has happened is over time, the amount of expenditures have exceeded that in the biennium. In the previous year, 2025, the expenditures were $62.935 million. And so you can see with the biannual budget of $92 million, it won't cover the full 2 years. So in an effort to alleviate the need to have a B11 request, and these are just accounting terms, this is how we account for making sure we get the account fully funded from the federal government. To avoid having to make a request without the legislature's approval, that's what a B11 is. The agency asked for additional spending authority in the future, and that's what the 58 billion is. It's this additional spending authority. Without that authority, they simply do a BTO11 and notify the legislature that they're going to spend the monies, and then they get the reimbursement after the activity is taken care of for the tribal member. And that, again, is fully funded by the federal government. So we see that rates have been going up and down as far as the increases in teacher rates. And so in 2021, the increase was 8.35%. In 22, it was 23.31%, quite large. Then it dropped all the way down in 2023 to 2.19%. And then in 24, it was 9.94. Last year, it was 11.4%. And just this week, we received what we believe is going to be the percentage increase, and it is 3.12%. So you can see we went from 11.4 down to 3.12%. And this is from the federal government, these percentages are. So that 58 million was a guess. It was a guess at 10%. Because we had been at 11.4. And it turns out the guess was a little overestimated. And now that we have the federal numbers at 3.12, the actual number is $41 million. So that is the proper amount to add to that request. And I can tell you the JAC is likely to take action before we get into session to ensure that we accept that new estimate, and that we go ahead and get that spending authority to the chief executive and to the department. So really, this is an accounting issue.
Thank you, Chairman. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can only speak for the Senate. I appreciate Chairman Baer's comments, but I can tell you that I'm very confident that the state Senate will fully support whatever the Department of Health's number is, and I also believe that that will be put into the biennium budget last year before session.
Thank you, Senator. I too am pleased. I realized all-inclusive rate pool, but the number is still going to be settled in terms of what that amount will be. But it sounds like it's in terms of being reconsidered and relooked at. That so the money or the funds is needed at our Indian Health Service or contract health services facilities, which has historically been underfunded over the years. But we appreciate all the work of help that's gone into this decision.
That was Tribal Relations Committee Chairman Representative Ivan. Salazar then went on to promise that the Senate would be voting to retain the funds for tribal funding, following testimony from a variety of healthcare providers and other people involved in tribal health, all thanking Bear and Salazar for their promises to restore the funding. State Representative Lloyd Larson also came forward, speaking in his capacity as a citizen, and pushed back on some of Bear's narrative.
Representative Larson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's good to be with you today. As I've listened to the comments today, as one of your colleagues and a member who served on this committee for most of the time that I've been in the legislature, I was hoping to bring that a little bit in perspective, our responsibilities as the state and as legislators, and how that's historically come to where we are today. Because as we continue these talks, it won't be the end of similar misunderstandings, if you will, and so we really rely upon this committee to make sure that there's a good understanding of the needs of our citizens who live on the reservations and of those two sovereign entities. And so I'd like to go back and just remind everybody that and I know that Rick talked about this just a little bit, in the Fort Bridger Treaty for the Shoshone Tribe in Section 10, it talks about providing a doctor. The federal government's obligation to the government of the Eastern Shoshone Tribes, this government provide what has been determined health care. Similar language in the Fort Laramie Treaty, and pretty consistent amongst all the treaties of the federally recognized tribes. And that has been determined to be an obligation to provide health service to the citizens and those sovereigns, whatever tribe that may be. That wasn't always funded real well. So in 1921 in the Snyder Act, it provided for consistent funding, which was a huge step forward, but the funding was still inconsistent. You put it along there, in 1956 we created the health service. And as Lee talked about, that the distribution of funds to the various tribes had been very problematic through the history of Indian Health Service, and particularly here on the Winderford Reservation, where that 11th share had to be divided between the two tribes. I might add, Chairman Case, thanks to you and some work will be done in the help in the CARES Act, we were able to get the Treasury to provide funding to each of those tribes separately, which was a big coup and a big start forward. We hope that continues on. But we kept the Indian Health Service funding wasn't real good. In 1975, with the Self-Determination Act, the tribes were allowed then to do this 638 contract. That they come out of the blocks. There was some stumbling and some falling, but the tribes, as they got their feet under and had been able to provide those services that have typically been provided by the federal government for themselves, whether it be irrigation, whether it be health care. Now, that leads us up to a conversation. Chair Case, that you recall, was in when CARES was being created. They are saying our funding the reimbursement is not adequate for this underserved population, and we worked to get an 1150, thank you, the 1150 waiver, which would allow to increase that funding through Medicaid to those Medicaid eligible people to our tribal health providers, and that included IHS at the time. We made that application. That application is still in front of CMS. It has gone away. There are some flaws in that application that the state and CMS has worked through. About a year or so later, even though we had been using this all-inclusive rate since 1995, CMS come back and received an assurance from the state of Wyoming that they would provide that 100% pass-through to tribal health care providers. That kind of satisfied the need of that waiver. Now, so then the federal government, really in an effort to try and satisfy its treaty obligation, federal government to the sovereign nation of the Arapaho tribe and sovereign nation of the Shoshone tribe, said, we will reimburse you for a 100% for all the services that you provide to those of your members that are enrolled in Medicaid. Now, this was a big deal for the state, and hats off to our Department of Health, who is very tenacious about looking at ways to make the dollar go further. Because up to this point, those members of the tribe who were enrolled in Medicaid, and many of them were getting reimbursed on the state with half, 50-50, and at a cost to the state. Mr. Brandon got educated. There's another way to do this better. And so now, those members of the tribes that are enrolled in Medicaid get reimbursed 100%, and if there's a service that a local hospital or even in Casper, a service that they provide that these two facilities don't provide, if they refer them to that hospital, as you know, Senator Case, they too can be reimbursed 100%. And that's a savings to the state. It's a big deal. But the feds have said, because we're going to reimburse 100%, we get to choose the rates. Yes, that's our choice. And state, we're just passing it through. And so if we had denied this money, we would still be obligated to pay for it. And so that was problematic. So I think that there's been some conversation that where some who would suggest that, well, we didn't have the true numbers at the time when the budget was presented. But if you listen to the testimony, which I did, that is not the case. Not at all. What he was told by the person who presented that amendment was that it was endeavored to save taxpayer dollars. And even though these were general fund taxes, they were federal taxes and we needed to save. So that effort, in my opinion, was short-sighted at best for not understanding what this money done and how it came across. But I think very deliberate to two sovereign nations violating their our treaty obligations to one population. Really not right. Now, guilty of charge. I've made mistakes in my life, and to come back and say, got it. We made a mistake. We'll put the money back in right on. That's the thing you need to do. But accept the fact that we made a mistake.
I wonder the CARES test part agenda here, Mr. Brand.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Woodrow Family Community Healthcare, and it's very hard for me to try not to show my emotions because I'm about ready to cry because Medicaid means everything to our physicians. Without it, we couldn't provide the health care at the levels we are, but we continue to build off of that Medicaid funding, and it's allowed us to build infrastructure. And in order to have the healthcare system, you have to have clinics, you have to have all kinds of various infrastructure, you have our physicians, dentists, behavioral health, mental health counselors. But I would like to thank Chairman Bug personally, because he has made my day. And Senator Salazar, thank you so much. And I am so grateful because without the funding, our people would die. I guess in closing, I thank you all and God bless you. And, Window Family Community Healthcare is a will of God. He is the one that's running it, not me. I'll be honest.
That was Senior Reporter Marit Gookin taking us into last week's Tribal Relations Committee, where legislators signaled a reverse course on a proposal that would have rejected $58 million in federal funds for Indian health services here in Wyoming. And I don't know about you, but as the days start getting longer, I start dreaming of nights grilling out on the deck. Today's show is brought to you by Porter's Mountain View Supply. Porter's carries grills built for flavor, performance, and durability. Whether you are cooking for a crowd or just firing it up on a weeknight, their team can help you find the grill that fits how you cook and how often you use it. What sets Porter's apart is their knowledgeable, friendly service. They take the time to answer questions, explain features, and help you choose the right setup so you can grill with confidence. You'll find Porter's Mountain View Supply at 750 East Sunset Drive in Riverton. Give them a call at